You got some good interviews, man. You got some classic shit.
What up, y'all? This is Robert Glasper. This is Terrace Martin.
It's Terrace Martin.
And you're watching
Hard Knock TV with the homie Nick.
I know last time I talked to Robert, we talked about J Dilla a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you were talking about how Dilla actually influenced you to play a certain way.
To me, Dilla is a major influence, if not the biggest influence on that whole neo-soul era. When people say neo-soul, it just reminds me of, it's Dilla-influenced soul music. You know what I mean? And when I moved to New York, that's where I moved to New York in '97, and that's what I was in. You know, jumped in that scene really fast, and I was playing with the Roots and all these other people playing that sound, watching people like James Poyser, who is like the catalyst for that whole, you know, sound. He's a big part of that sound too. Right. You know, watching him play and doing this, and then, you know, working with Bilal for his first record. We went to Detroit, and I got a chance to like watch Dilla make beats and jam with him while he's on MPCs and I'm playing the keys and like really feel what that feels like. You know what I mean? So yeah, all those records, man. I always say he's the producer that musicians want to play like, and that's not a real normal thing. You know what I mean? Most producers are trying to mimic what's already out in their own way, whatever it is, but musicians were trying to play like Dilla, and that created a whole thing. You know what I mean? That's the difference between him and probably any other producer that I know. You know what I mean? He literally changed my whole style of playing, you know? Trying to play like chops that were originally chopping jazz anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like a full circle.
I remember you were talking a little bit about how you and Amir kind of like, it's a little delay. The slightly off, but it fits with with what's going on. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a feel thing. It's Bilal calls it, we used to call it drunk funk. A lot of people think when you play behind the beat, that's Dilla, and that's not it. Right. You know what I mean? It could be one thing behind the beat. It could be one thing ahead of the beat. You know what I mean? It could just be one thing ahead of the beat. Nothing's behind the beat. You know what I mean? It could be anything, what the bass is doing, what the keys is doing, or what the snare is doing, the hi-hat's doing, the bass drum's doing. It's just like something that's unquantized. You know what I mean? Right. Meaning like not locked into a grid, a time grid. So you can be slippery with it. You know what I mean? So you just be in the middle of it like, oh, you know. And it's a different kind of feeling. You know what I mean? And he really brought that to the world, you know, on a big level.
Right. Did you feel the Dilla heat in the West Coast? Or?
Yeah, definitely. We felt it at about 1998. We felt it through Kurupt, because Kurupt was already messing with JD down in Detroit a whole lot. Kurupt had folks down in Detroit, so he would always go and mess with Slum and go mess with JD, so he would bring back like tapes, you know, when he would go out there, like their first record. Right. I was privileged to hear that first record like in '98, right after they did it, because of Kurupt was on it with Q-Tip and everybody else. To me, it's like three different Dillas, like if you follow his thing. So this was the early Dilla. Sub bass on the MP, that one. Not really, not the push, not yet all the way, but you could hear it was developing. So for us, from the West Coast, it felt similar to our godfather of the West Coast, which is Battlecat. Because Battlecat was from this area, and he wasn't doing things in the same way Dilla did them, but he would do his own thing, playing key bass behind the beat and everything. And come to find out later on in 2001, I read an interview, and J Dilla said that he was heavily inspired by the Domino record in 1995. And who produced the Domino record? Battlecat. You know what I'm saying? And Battlecat he played Dilla. When Dilla, that Slum Village album, Battlecat, I mean, we was playing Fantastic One. And Battlecat's, he had a yellow El Camino with Dayton's on it. This is when We Could Freak and all that. This is like the hype of, like, everything was Battlecat on the radio. Snoop and the East Side is Lucy Pearl. So to know Battlecat was dominating #1 hit records, but in his CD player was J Dilla every day. And he'd pick me up and be like, man, listen to this. And we cat liked to dance to the rhythm. So he'd be like, man, you hear J Dilla? It sound like he dragging his mink in the mud, not even getting it wet. Ooh. That's how Battlecat would explain J Dilla. So for us, Jay, in the late 90s, like as Dilla was growing, we was growing with him, but maybe from a whole different thing. And then I found out my best friend was one of, harmonically, one of the guys shifting all that things, you know, Dilla and James, and he was like a little James in a sense, then flipping all that stuff up, and then, it all what I'm trying to say, it all was coinciding at the same time. It was all bubbling, you know, because the same time Dilla was bubbling, that's when Snoop had broke away from Death Row and the East Side was bubbling with Battlecat, Sugar Free, DJ Quick had Rhythmism. So like the West Coast was bubbling, and the only person that was penetrating through that whole thing was J Dilla. Wow. You know what I'm saying?
I remember when you were telling some Dilla stories, you were talking about the process of him mixing and how he would go into his car. Can you share that story for us?
Yeah, because he said, you know, most people listen to music in their car, you know, which is very true.
Especially for the West Coast. Like that's, we make the music for the ride.
And Dilla, when he wrote, we would drive with him, and he literally would just listen to his beats in the car. His beats, we drive around for hours. In Detroit, they had some park you would go, and everybody would just cruise, you know, the park, whatever. But that was the thing, listen to music. So in his mixing, where he mixed, the soundboard was here. He had a Range Rover at the time. This was like 98, I think. He had a Range Rover, and it was literally, there's a door, like right there. It was literally, you could walk to his car in 5 steps. So he would do a mix, print it, put it on CD, jump in the car, listen to it. And then come back, change it up, print it, listen to it, and that's how he mixed, you know, because he wanted to make sure it sounded good in the car. Because, you know, percentage of what you listen to, you know, it's in the ride. The speakers in the car. A lot of people mix to this shit. Everybody got this shit in their car. Nobody got this shit in their car. But, you know what I'm saying? But you don't mix for the studio. You mix for people with regular shit. Right. Because that's who's going to be buying the stuff and listening to it, you know? So that's what he was doing.
Now, there was a lot of improvisation to the way Dilla made beats. I heard stories like if the AC was going on and there was a sound that it made, he would incorporate that.
He did on tell me if you want something, come on. Baby. Boom, boom, boom. You know what I'm talking about? The one with D'Angelo on Fantastic Volume 2. Right before that started, that was Frank. And Frank, the air conditioning thing was on and it was open.
Frank from Frankendank?
Frankendank, yep. And he said, Dilla was like, you feel that wind blowing your ass? He's like, yeah, like, close that. And he just kept it.
What up, Frank Nitty? Frank Nick.
Frank, that's what this. Yeah, so
Frank Nick.
He just kept it. But that is a vibe, though. He's very much a jazz musician in that respect. You know what I mean?
Speaking about jazz musicians, you both worked on with Kendrick a lot. I feel like To Pimp a Butterfly, his voice was almost like an instrument. Can you guys talk about that a little bit and kind of, do you see similarities in how the way Dilla treated hip hop and maybe the way Kendrick, you know, especially for that period?
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels. Well, you can't peg Dilla because there is a sound that some people know what that is, you know what I mean? But like you were saying, there's different Dillas, you know what I mean? And there are some Dillas stuff that people haven't even heard. They'll probably come out 10 years or 5 years or next week. There's always Dilla batches, you know what I mean? But me and Bilal were hearing stuff in his car. We were like, what is that? And he was just like, oh man, I was just practicing. I'm like, what? Huh? You know, like crazy stuff, you know? Kendrick, he reminds me of like a dope, I wouldn't even say, he's like a person that plays a bunch of instruments. Because if you say he's like a saxophone player, it's like, yeah, but a saxophone player, you know that if you have a favorite saxophone player, you know what he sounds like. You know what his cadence is. You can when you hear it, you know what it is. You know the cadence. With Kendrick on Pimp a Butterfly especially, every track he's changing his voice. And he's changing his flow and he's changing his cadence. The way he's rhyming. Most rappers that are dope rappers or your favorite rapper, you know their cadence. They kind of have one cadence. And you know what that is. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of, it's their cadence, you know? But Kendrick, he has so many cadences. He can go so many places, you know what I mean? And that's what's so dope about him. And, you know, even when Terrace got me on To Pimp a Butterfly, you know, what was that? What studio was that at?
The Interscope.
Dr. Dre?
Yeah, it was Dre's studio, yeah.
Dre's studio. So when I went, Terrace just called me to come play on for free. The one joint.
Not for free.
No, not for free.
Song for
the song for
free.
free. Sorry. The song for free.
He's expensive too. He's expensive.
So he called me to do the song for free. So when I went in there to play it, Kendrick had never seen me play live, you know. So when I went in there, you know, he saw how dope I was. And he was like, oh, snap, you know, and started pulling up all these songs they recorded already. You know, he was like, pull up so-and-so, pull up, you know, complexions, pull up this, pull up that. So to elaborate on how spontaneous he is, on complexions, basically every song he'll pull it up and be like, listen to it. I would listen to it, I would learn it, and then I would do a pass. He'll be like, play whatever you want, whatever you hear. They was like, play whatever you hear. So I would listen to it, learn it, play one pass of whatever I heard. So when complexions came on, I played to it, and then it stopped, but I kept going. I just kept going at the end. And I was kind of changing the voicings of the chords a little bit and, just kept going with the vibe. And I kept it going for another 4 minutes. Mm-hmm. Right? And then when I looked at the glass, I saw you and Kendrick going keep going, mm-hmm. keep going. And when I came out, I remember you and Kendrick was like, oh man, we're going to put some other drums on there. Yeah. And Kendrick's like, put the 808, I'm going to rap in a different voice. I remember him saying that. He's like, I'm going to rap in a different voice. But then when I was to the record, that's the part where he got Rhapsody on. On that joint. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was literally the part that she came on. So that was the spontaneity of him being like, oh, that's dope. Let's do that now. You know what I mean? Let's add that to it,
How much of those sessions were vibes? Like, it felt like listening to an album, like you guys just got in there and it was just like, there was a lot of freedom in terms of
it was a lot of freedom, but it was a lot of freedom, but it was a lot of structure. I mean, just grouping those kind of musicians together, it's strings and writing for strings and charts and then drum and then making sure this is cool and then having all these language barriers and only a few people that only could talk both languages is a big thing when you're dealing with a team like that. You have me, then you have Robert, but he has to go back to New York, so then it's just those things are vibes, but they're definitely produced and constructed. That's why they're free creatively, but they're thought out. That's why they last forever.
How much of what happened there spilled over?
That was nice. That's why that lasts forever. That was the bar. It was good.
How much of those sessions spilled over, or those vibes spilled over into your solo project?
You have a solo project? That's awesome, man. Can I be on it?
Yeah. I'm playing trumpet on this one.
Oh, thanks, man.
I think more or less the vibe.
Right.
Just the vibe and a lot of the similar musicians, because we're all one crew anyway, So I think just the energy, poured a little bit over, because it was still a different, when it's a new day, it's a new day. So, we kind of don't want too much shit to spill over from another thing into one thing.
Right.
Because then it wouldn't make it different, you know what I mean? But it's, yeah. Did he just smoke that? Oh.
Hip hop, man.
See, that's the vibe.
Speaking of vibes, on your Twitter, I saw that you guys were in the studio with Herbie. What can you guys tell us about that?
I would like to talk about that.